Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome everybody, and to another episode of Yaron's news briefing. Today is the 9th of January, and I am still in Puerto Rico. You witnessed a little bit, those of you who were online last night my time. Some of you witnessed the risks of being in Puerto Rico, because about an hour, 15 minutes into the show yesterday, boom, the lights went out. Luckily, I have a UPC or UPS or whatever you call it. So my computers survived it, but the actual show did not survive it. It was just too much to carry everything that's going on these massive monitors and to keep it rolling on battery power. But yeah, there is a risk every evening that the lights will go off and the show will end spontaneously. So there we go. Part of the joys, risks, and there are rewards associated, I guess, with the risks you take of living in Puerto Rico. In California, you just have to worry about fire and earthquakes. In Puerto Rico, you have to worry about hurricanes and power outages. One nature and one really more man-made. The incompetence, really, of the power authority in Puerto Rico, which needs to be privatized and hopefully will be privatized in the months to come. To the extent that I have anything to say about it, and I don't, that should be fun. We've already got a caller with a question. All right, haven't even raised any topics. So you're just going to have to be patient for a while. I'll get to questions, so hopefully you can stay online. And I promise I will take your question, unless, of course, there's a power outage and we lose it all. All right, hopefully video and audio for everybody is cool, is good. And hopefully you're all having a great, what day is it today? It's a Tuesday, a great Tuesday. And let's just roll with it. So just some of the headlines in the news, I'll just go over them, make some comments, and then open it up to your calls. Iran, demonstrations seem to be petering out in Iran. Seems like the regime there has beaten the demonstrators down. Although Ayatollah Khamenei did come out today and say, yeah, well, the grievances, many of them have some truth to them. We need to improve our economy. Central planners, go at it. Improve the economy, make it better. So you know there are going to be demonstrations again, because you know that the economy, not just in Iran, but elsewhere in the Arab world, or the Muslim world, because Iran is not technically Arab, is horrible, and people living under regimes that are unfree, are likely to see increases in demonstrations and people rising up against those regimes. I didn't see much on the Trump administration on this. Many of us. There was some hope that he would take a different path than the Obama administration did in 2009, and he tweeted a little bit about it, but not much beyond that. And so the foreign policy establishment seems to really have the grips on even what the Trump administration does. So nothing new, nothing different really. There's a good piece in Atlantic Magazine today, I think. Yeah, it was published today, earlier today, to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, about the Iran protests and the myth of benign silence. And so the idea is in 2009 that Obama stayed silent, or relatively silent. He said a few things about it, but basically had a low profile, very similar, I think, to what Trump has done. I think there's been very little difference between the Obama and the Trump administration's response to the Iranian demonstrations. But the excuse given for this is, if we raise too much of a voice, then the Iranians will blame everything on America. They'll claim the uprising is American, it's inspired by America, and it'll undercut the moral force of the people themselves. And this article in The Atlantic today argues against that. It's written by, I can't tell if he's an Iranian, Shadi Hamid, which sounds more of like an Arab name than a Persian name, but than an Iranian name. But anyway, he makes a great argument that this is completely bogus. That indeed, America standing up, America speaking out, America defending the right of the protesters and defending their cause and defending freedom generally is a beacon of hope to the world. It's a beacon of hope to the demonstrators. It rallies them, it inspires them, and it actually scares the bejesus out of the people in power. I mean, I've given the example of Lech Walesa in Poland and Eastern Europe generally, how inspiring Ronald Reagan was to the movements that were fighting against communism in Eastern Europe. And he was. And of course the Soviets blamed everything, every demonstration, every strike, anything they blamed on, oh, it's United States intervention, it's the United States. But it didn't matter, because the people knew better, and the people were inspired by Reagan's support and by American support, and that ultimately led them to be more courageous, to fight harder, and ultimately to bring down the Soviet Union. So moral support, moral affirmation is unbelievably valuable. Unbelievably valuable. Somebody's quoted as saying in the article, they say 80% of all the freedom we have in Egypt is due to American pressure. Now the author says, yeah, that's probably exaggerated. Maybe it's only 20%. But 20% of freedom is good. It's great. And if America can inspire an autocratic regime like Egypt to increase the amount of freedom it gives to its people by 20%, then great. And all it costs us is words. It's moral support. It's moral argument. So I'd love to see this administration, any administration, an administration, now this administration, I think anything it does is suspect and is less valuable. But I'd love to see an American administration, in the name of America first, in the name of American self-interest, support all the causes of liberty and freedom in the world out there. Stand with those that are standing for even a little bit of freedom. They don't have to be objectivists for you to stand up for them. We take for granted the liberties and freedoms that we have in this country, and we're letting them slip away every single day. And many of us do so by not fighting for whatever we have. There are many, many people, most of the people of the planet, live in conditions that are far, far worse than ours. The one thing we could do is support them morally. But in the case of Iran, an enemy of the United States, we should be supporting them financially. We should be supporting them with arms. We should be supporting them with covert operations. We should be supporting them with any way that we can to help the Iranian people overthrow the theocracy that is brutalizing them. I don't know. We can hope, I guess. Hope, but it ain't happened. But I do encourage you to go read this article in The Atlantic. Those of you who have a subscription, I don't know if it's free, but it might be free online. But it's called Iran's Protests and the Myth of Benign Silence. It's very good in its attack on the Obama-type attitude. No, we're going to keep a low profile, because as he says in the article, it doesn't matter. The regime is going to blame it on America no matter what. No matter what. All right, so I understand that we've got some freezing images today. I apologize for that. I'm not sure what it is. It might be just low bandwidth, but I don't think so. I had bandwidth was good earlier today. You know what I'm waiting for? I'm really waiting for is, bandwidth is great. I'm waiting for Apple to release the new Apple Pro because I think that's what I need. I need some heavy duty processing power. I think that's what's hurting this. I can't think of anything else. The bandwidth is there, upstream and downstream, but I'm running it off of Apple, which it should be fine, but I'm running it off a Apple MacBook Pro 13-inch with 16 gig of RAM. Maybe I need 32, but I think I need just more processing power. I just think I need more muscle to get the show really going. So if anybody's an expert out there and you have a recommendation in terms of what computer I should be using to drive this. But what I'm hoping is that Apple soon comes out with the new Pro or a much more powerful Mac Mini or something. But I hate to buy the very old generations. They haven't updated them in a long time. All right, so that's Yaron. Some good news. Good news. Bannon is out of Breitbart. I mean, I'm not a fan of Breitbart, so I don't really care that much vis-a-vis Breitbart. But Bannon is a bad man, and he's the closest that we have to somebody who would inspire or wants to inspire a semi-fascist movement in this country. He's a bad person. He combines authoritarianism with religion, authoritarianism, religion, and what he calls economic nationalism, which is this anti-immigration, anti-free trade, anti-good economics from my perspective approach to America. He supported Judge Moore for his Senate run in Alabama and lost big time. And then he's quoted in this book saying all kinds of things about Trump, which are probably true, and about Trump's kids, all probably true, but that has caused a big falling out between him and Trump, and as a consequence caused a big falling out, more importantly, between him and the money. And as a consequence of the falling out with the money, he's basically being kicked out of Breitbart, and he's lost what's more important, what's more significant politically, is he has lost his financial supporters, which means he's not going to really be influential in running candidates. A lot of the candidates that are considered Bannon candidates are now distancing themselves from Steve Bannon and claiming, oh, no, we're not really Bannon candidates, we're independent. And so I think his influence in American politics is dead. That's my theory right now. It's dead. He's gone. And what we're left with is Donald Trump. And the difference between Bannon and Trump is Bannon's an ideologue. Bannon really believes in certain things. Trump is a pragmatic opportunist. He's a marketing guy. And Bannon gave him certain advice that he took to heart that got him elected, but he doesn't believe necessarily in any of the stuff. And as you'll see when we discuss immigration in a minute, Trump doesn't believe any of the stuff necessarily. So he's a complete pragmatist, unprincipled opportunist. So, and there's a difference. The ideologue Bannon scares me a lot more than the pragmatist, opportunist Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump's going to do damage, but it's nothing like what if he supported Bannon, it was all. Now, it would be great if Jeff Sessions were kicked out. That would be terrific. Jeff Sessions is the worst that I can think of in terms of Attorney General, primarily because of his stance on religion. He is the worst that I know of on immigration and separation of church and state. We talk his going after marijuana. Now, of course, he's following the law. I don't really blame him for that as much as I blame Congress for not changing the law. But he has some discretion about where to emphasize, what to emphasize. He doesn't have to violate the law, but he can decide. There's a lot of discretion at the Attorney General in terms of which, who to go after really hard and who not to go after really hard. And he is probably choosing to go after marijuana states that have made marijuana legal. Go figure. Of all the problems we have in this country, that's the thing we should go after. So hopefully Sessions will be out. I doubt it, because a lot of this issue is an issue of loyalty with Trump. Is this Attorney General loyal? And while Trump is mad at Sessions because Sessions has kind of recused himself from the Russian investigation, and Trump used that a little bit as disloyal, Sessions was also the first guy who backed Trump. Sessions has been in Trump's corner from the beginning. Much tougher to get rid of Sessions, I think, for Trump than to get rid of Bannon and others who, were never really. I mean, Bannon was bad-mouthing Trump while he was there, right? While he was there in the White House, he was already bad-mouthing Trump. So anyway, it would be nice if Sessions went. It would be nice if a lot of people went. I don't have, some of the people he's appointed are very good, and some of the people are just weak. They're just nothings. All right, we're going to take a couple of phone calls, and then I want to talk about this immigration meeting that Donald Trump had today with members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats. Hi, you're on the Yaron Book Show. Who's this?
Hey, this is Michael.
Hey, Michael. How's it going?
Hey, last time we talked, you said if I was to prove you wrong, that you would. I might be wrong because I haven't watched every single show of yours because I've been busy moving like you.
Yep.
But you said if I was to prove you wrong about the sentencing discrepancies, crack.
Yep.
That you would make it public.
I did. You missed the
right.
show. I did. I did a mea culpa on two things, and that was one of them. I said that I oversimplified it, and that it's more complex than I believed. I don't think it's quite as simple as you claim it is, but that I was wrong about it. I said that.
Okay, now I got another question. You support freedom of expression through art and stuff. You think art's very important. That's a central part of the Ayn Rand philosophy. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I think art is very important.
Okay. Now, would you support protesting from art?
I don't know what that means.
Like maybe like you make an art piece to represent an issue that you dislike or you want to promote.
Yeah.
To go the narratives of a government or something. So
yeah, but I don't think art. I don't think that's art. That's not art. That's propaganda. So I would support it because you got a First Amendment right to protest. I mean, to protest in words and in pictures, anything you want. But that's not art. Art is not political. I mean, that's the bullshit of the left to claim that the primary function of art is political. The primary function of art is metaphysical. It's inspirational. It's emotional and spiritual and epistemological fuel. It's fuel for the soul. It has nothing to do with politics. Right. Yeah, go ahead.
The reason I ask is because during our debate, you started to make a case for why you don't think that people have a right to protest.
Protest is not art.
I was wondering how you square that.
Protest is not art. Marching on property and disrupting traffic and taking over buildings, or marching in a park, disrupting people's attempt to barbecue and have a nice time on a sunny day in the park. That is not free speech. Now, take for example. Now, I don't know, Michael. I get a feeling that you've taken it upon yourself as your life mission to challenge me on to find flaws in my thinking. It's great, but it's kind of funny every time you call. It's like, oh my God, Michael's calling. What did I do now?
I mean it in the highest respect because I actually find you a very productive interlocutor.
Yeah.
And I learn a lot from you.
Good.
And
so look, imagine if we had a real capitalist world in which all property was private. Could you march on somebody else's private property unless they gave you permission? No.
Absolutely not.
No, exactly. Now, why is it that we suddenly have public property and we say, okay, if the city council or some bunch of bureaucrats decide to shut down all the traffic and let some group march. And I don't care what the cause is. It could be the Nazis. It could be the capitalists. It could be the feminists. It could be anybody. It doesn't matter. But we're going to shut down the streets and let these people march and obstruct everybody's busy days. And because we represent the people and we as the people think this is a valuable march, I mean, that's bullshit. So the public property, like roads, should be used for transportation, for people going from point A to point B, and nobody should be allowed to disrupt that. There is no right to disrupt my ability to use the road that was designed. And just think, if it was private property, this march would never happen. Or if it happened, it would only happen if the private owners of the road, did it and then lost as a consequence, because there would be a price to pay for having blocked my way in traffic. So I don't believe that the action. First of all, action is not speech. I've talked about this before. Supreme Court saying that stripping is speech, and therefore strippers have a First Amendment right to strip, is again bullshit. Instead of saying strippers have an individual right to do whatever they want that's voluntary, and if they want to take off their clothes, they have every right to do so, because they construe the Constitution wrongly, they think they have to squeeze the right of a stripper to strip into the First Amendment in a convoluted way. The same thing about marching. You do not have a right to disrupt other people's lives by marching, by acting, by protesting, by yelling, by waving signs. You can do that on private property. So you can rent a hall. Let me finish. You can rent a hall. You can rent a stadium. Yeah. You can rent a piece of property in Midtown Manhattan. If that property is privately owned, you can rent it and you can have a demonstration on that private property. But I don't think you can just march in the streets. And Ayn Rand wrote about this. And she said, look, once you allow somebody to march, then you have to allow everybody to march. But marching is not art. Marching is not speech. Marching is action. Marching is an activity. And you don't have a right to infringe on other people's freedom of movement by blocking streets and obstructing their ability to enjoy the park or whatever it is.
Can I ask you just a couple things, and then I'll let you go?
Sure.
This is the reason that I find a little bit of contradiction, because when we're talking about protesting, we're not real. I mean, that's a minor part. Not everybody blocks streets. That's obviously
it's always blocking streets.
Non-aggression.
Always blocking streets. Look at Charlottesville. Streets were closed. But even not Charlottesville. Anytime there's a protest, like in Oregon, every weekend there's a protest, they have to block streets because massive numbers of people are mass, and streets are blocked.
Right. Yeah. Right. Now, the reason I ask this is because kind of using Ayn Rand's rationale, because she used I can't remember if it was healthcare or something like that from the government. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're definitely more educated on Ayn Rand than I am, but I believe her rationale was, she paid into it. So could you not take that rationale and apply it to, since I paid for the sidewalk, I have a right to protest on it?
No, you have a right, because you paid for the sidewalk, you have a right to walk on it. If you pay into Social Security, you have a right, and you are against Social Security. You have a right to take money out of Social Security, but you don't have a right to go and rob the Federal Reserve and steal the gold from Fort Knox. The fact that you pay your taxes, you pay for infrastructure, you certainly have a right to use the roads. And this is why, by the way, I don't think protesting is right, because once you protest, you're blocking my ability to use the roads that I paid for, right? Use the pavement that I paid for, that all of us paid for. And just because a majority votes for it, it's still imposing its will on the minority. And of course, a majority doesn't vote for it. Our smart city councilmen vote for it. And this is the other issue, Michael, so once you let one group demonstrate, what if the next day a second group wants to demonstrate? And the next day a third group wants to demonstrate? And a fourth day a fourth group wants to demonstrate? What if every day there's a different group that wants to demonstrate? By what standard do you decide who to let demonstrate and who not to let demonstrate? And if you're going to let everybody demonstrate, then aren't you setting yourself up to the possibility, at least, of complete chaos and disaster.
And I agree that if you infringe on somebody's freedom to travel through freely, that's obviously a violation. I was just trying to square it.
But remember that the police do.
You know.
But that's what the police do. They block streets to allow the protest to move forward. That's what they do.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for taking my call, and I'll think of something else to challenge you on next time.
Sounds good. I always enjoy it. Thanks for calling, Michael. I think you make the show more interesting. So thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Hi, you're on the Yaron Book Show. Who's this?
Aloha, it's Stuart.
I thought it was you, Stuart. How's it going?
It's going great. May I ask 2 questions?
Go ahead. One at a time, though.
Oh, the first one is about trickle-down economics because you addressed this earlier, and I want to ask you your opinion on Thomas Sowell's opinion. He said that free market people should not concede there is such a thing as trickle-down economics because it was always a straw man made by William James Bryan and Stuart Chase, who coined New Deal also, where the idea is that wealth is a trough full of water, and capitalists want the rich business owners to gulp down the water first, and then little droplets trickle down.
Yeah, but that's
lift it up.
Yeah, but that's buying into the zero-sum world view, and you can't do that, but you can't give up the idea. I never use trickle-down economics as a term because I don't think it's a useful term. But when it comes up, when the other side brings it up, then I let loose. That's when I bring up, no, this is a flood down. But remember, this is Ayn Rand's, what Ayn Rand talked about, which is the upside-down pyramid. It's the pyramid of ability. It's the fact that we all stand on the shoulders of giants. It's the fact that the great businessmen and the great producers and the great innovators and great thinkers disproportionately benefit all of us, much more than anybody else, much more than the workers could ever imagine. So making that point is so important, and not buying in to the William Bryant zero-sum exploitative story. So instead of saying, look, they've already poisoned the well, in a sense, by their description of what trickle-down economics, I'm saying, no, let's explain what it really means. And it basically means the pyramid of ability, Ayn Rand's pyramid of ability. And that's what needs to be explained over and over and over again to people.
But Thomas Sowell's point is that that's not how the money flows, because you say flood down, that's still conceding the idea that the money goes to the business owner first, and then the wealth is transferred to the employees. Thomas Sowell says reverse because the employees are creditors to whom the business owners owe money. Therefore, when the business gains revenue, the business has to pay money to the creditors, meaning the employees get the money first. It's only after all the creditors are paid off that the business owners get anything.
Yeah, but that's not true. But that's not true because the business can't get started unless you have capital invested in the business. And it's that capital invested in the business that then creates the opportunities for employment. It creates the opportunities for everything else to happen economically. So you have to start. And the mistake is to equate it with money. It's not about money, it's about wealth, it's about value creation. You have to create the value first for the money to even start flowing, for the money to get anywhere. So it's the value creation that trickles down. But without capital investment, without the idea, without the values created at the top, employment doesn't exist. Employees are not there. The idea that you start with, and this is the problem, this is why Thomas Sowell and so many of them, even Adam Smith, they still hold on to the labor theory of value, and they don't give it up. The primary in business, the most important aspect of business, the thing that makes business possible, and the thing, therefore, that in a sense trickles down to everything else by making everything else possible, is the idea. And it's the capital, and it's the investment, and it's the risk taking. That's what generates the flow of revenue, which can then pay the creditors. But it doesn't belong to the creditors. It belongs to the people who came up with the idea. So it's not useful to think of it in those terms. And again, it gives way too much credit to employees. Employees are there. Employees are necessary, and it's a mistake. But it's the idea and the capital that make business possible. It's the idea and the capital that make jobs possible. There are no employees until there's an idea and there's capital.
Well, I think his point is that it's not the case that the wealth flows down from the business owners.
But of course it does. Who creates the wealth? Who creates the wealth? Where does profit come from? Where does revenue come from? Forget profit. Where does revenue come from that pays the employees?
From entrepreneurial activity.
Yeah. Of whom? Whose entrepreneurial activity? Primarily.
The entrepreneurs.
Yes, the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs create a revenue stream which then goes to pay employees. Right? But without them creating the revenue stream, without them creating the inflow of cash, the employees cannot be paid. They have a piece of paper that says IOU. It's worthless, as happens in bankruptcy, unless there's revenue. And the only people at the end of the day who create revenue are people who are entrepreneurs, the people who create wealth. So of course it flows down. He's wrong. I mean, I hate to say about Thomas Sowell that he's wrong, because he's brilliant, but he's wrong. Because he's bought into the Adam Smith and into many economists' view of a static. They don't understand the role of the entrepreneur, not in a deep sense, not in a deep fundamental sense.
Okay. Well, I think what he meant is that the employees are the privileged ones, and it's actually he's trying to reverse it. He says the anti-capitalists are saying the business owners are privileged people, and they treat the employees like peons. But actually, the employees are the privileged people, who are owed money by the business owner. It's the business owner who's taking all the risk and is getting treated relatively shabbily.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't get the point, I guess. I just don't get the point. It doesn't help our cause, and it doesn't really explain what happens in reality. What happens in reality is I've just described, so I don't want to repeat myself.
May I ask a second question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I read about Ayn Rand talking about American sense of life and Don't Let It Go, the essay where she talks about the American sense of life, which is very can-do and positive, versus the European sense of life, which is very more pessimistic and you ought to know your place and all of that.
Yeah.
And I was intrigued when on PJTV years ago you said Christmas is your favorite holiday that the Christians stole from the pagans. So I read about it, and I was intrigued because a lot of these historians say that our modern conception of a benevolent, child-friendly Christmas actually comes from 19th century United States.
Yep.
And even the pagan version in Europe, back in those days, they thought of Christmas as these drunken orgies where people would riot even. And they even had these stories about these scary monsters like Krampus that would punish disobedient children in December.
Yep.
And historians said that it was in the 19th century United States where people like Clark Clement Moore, revised the idea of Christmas, where Santa is very benevolent. He isn't helped by these, scary monsters that punish children.
Oh, I think that's absolutely right. And I've talked about this. I mean, a lot of this was created by modern day Santa was created by Coca-Cola. The image of him, Macy's parade really made Christmas into what it is today, lights and celebration, the Christmas tree and the decorations. There used to be a Christmas tree and there were decorations, but the way it's done today is all 19th century. And it's all American. And it never existed in Europe. And the point is that the date, some of the Christmas tree and the gift giving are all pagan holidays. It was a pagan holiday and pagan ceremonies that the Christians stole. But the modern day Christmas, the way we celebrate today and the benevolence surrounding Christmas, that is all a fundamentally American invention. Although the pagans, many of them, depending on the period of time, were not that malevolent. I mean, some of them were relatively benevolent as compared to, Europeans today, if you will. So like in Rome, there was a lot of gift giving going on around Christmas. There was a pagan holiday with gift giving, which is a benevolent thing. So it's a combination of stealing from the pagans and 19th century American capitalism benevolence that created modern day Christmas. Christianity can take very little credit for it.
Oh, well, may I make one final point about Ben Shapiro and altruism?
Sure, but make it quick.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I think he ought to read Auguste Comte's Catechism of Positive Religion, because in it, Comte directly addresses whether an entrepreneur is being altruistic by benefiting the customers.
Yeah, I know.
Comte says no, because that's still reciprocal, and he says altruism cannot, quote, have reciprocity, unquote. He uses the French equivalent of the English word.
Yep.
So according to him, reciprocal altruism, which is a favorite term used by Richard Dawkins and these evolutionary psychologists, is an oxymoron.
Yeah, but they've redefined altruism because it's convenient for them, because they will do anything in their power to try to avoid using the issue of self-interest. All right, great, thanks. I still need to get in another issue, and I have got three callers in line, which I will take. You guys are gonna have to hold for a second while I cover this issue. Let me again apologize for those of you on YouTube and Facebook for the bad video today. I have no idea why it's happening. The fact is, bandwidth is 90 right now. Is at 93 megabytes per second upstream and downstream. It's exactly the same. That should provide you with HD video with no buffering and nothing. So I have a feeling it's not the issue of bandwidth. That I think what I'm facing with is an issue of my processor being overly heating up, and I just don't know what to do about that other than to get a more powerful computer, and I'm waiting for Apple to bring out the more powerful computer. If anybody has ideas about when that's going to happen and what computer in those circumstances I should buy, or if there's something I could buy today that would be better than what I have, let me know. I am definitely interested. So let me just do something. We might get a little disruption here, but hopefully this will help us in a little while. So, all right, let's see. I'm going to take a commercial break, and then I'll be right back.
Did you know there is an easy, automatic way to support the Ayn Rand Institute all year long? For any purchase made at Amazon.com, the Amazon Smile program sends a small percentage to ARI. Doesn't matter what you buy, if you shop at Amazon, the money you spend can help spread Ayn Rand's ideas. Are you a student required to read bad philosophers? Buy the books on Amazon and support ARI. Birthdays, anniversaries, and Christmas, all these purchases add up. And it's not just you. Imagine the results if every Ayn Rand fan in the country used Amazon Smile to support ARI. Are you smiling? Sure you are. Sign up is free and easy. Just go to smile.amazon.com and make sure you select ARI as your Smile recipient.
All right. Thank you all for being patient. Yeah, I just brought up a kind of a page that shows how much the processor is being utilized right now, and it's at 100%. So I think that explains what's going on. The processor is running 3.5 gigahertz at 100%. Anyway, anybody have good ideas about improving my computer setup to make this? I don't know why everybody else seems to stream and have no problem. I seem to have all these problems, and I don't think it has anything to do with Puerto Rico. I just don't know. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about this impromptu meeting today that Trump held about immigration, about DACA, about these kids that were born in the United States to illegal immigrants, or who came not born in the United States, they would be citizens, who came when they were very young children to the United States with their parents who came in illegally. And Trump basically wants to cut a deal. He's made it clear that he's willing to basically give them a path to citizenship, but he wants all this stuff in exchange, and there's been a lot of back and forth. Basically, he wants a wall in exchange. He's said on various occasions that he wants this so-called chain immigration to go away, and he wants generally to curtail legal immigration. All this stuff, all these people who claimed, oh, Trump wants legal immigration, it's just illegal he doesn't like, has all turned out to be completely wrong, because Trump himself keeps saying how much he wants to curtail legal immigration, and there was a lot written last week about the efforts of the Trump administration to pass legislation to really curtail H-1B visas, and these are the visas that are used by Silicon Valley, are used by the kind of immigrants who don't use welfare. So what do you say about that, right? What do you guys say about that? All these people who say you can't, as long as you have welfare, you can't have too many immigrants. What about H-1B visa? People who come in and actually work for a living, they're not taking welfare. Are you for expanding that program? Are you for expanding it dramatically? What about a program that said anybody who gets a job in the United States, anybody who works for a living, anybody who can get a job should be allowed in, and they are banned from welfare? Would you support that? I'm just curious where exactly some of you anti-immigration people are. Now, I know that's not the problem you see. Many of them just don't want immigrants who don't think like you. But of course, nobody in America thinks like me. So what? We should kick people out. I mean, I don't see why we shouldn't kick people out. We should have an objectivist test, and if you don't pass, we should throw you on the other side of the border. Oh, I forgot. Nobody in government is actually an objectivist. So whatever test they put together is not going to be an objectivist test. It's not going to be an individual rights test, because nobody in Washington actually knows what individual rights are. Okay. So here was this meeting. It was a little unusual because the House members and the Senate members didn't really know that they were going to be in front of cameras. So it was impromptu. They didn't have their set little speeches ready. So they really just were speaking, and it was all taped. So there's evidence of all this. And what really came across about this, which was really, I found really interesting, was the fact that Donald Trump didn't take any specific position. He was all over the map. At some point, he agreed with Senator Feinstein from California. Oh my God. How could anybody ever agree with Senator Feinstein? But he agreed with Feinstein that a DACA, a law that legalized these young people, a clean bill, that would be a good idea. And then one of the Republicans had to remind the president, no, you actually want a wall as well. You don't want just a clean bill just with DACA. And he said, oh, yes, and then we want a wall. And then I want these other things. But you know what? He said, I'll sign anything you send me. I don't really care. So it was this really interesting back and forth where you could see how frustrated the Republicans were, because the president wouldn't stand firm on any particular issue, nothing. So that they couldn't all rally behind a particular cause and negotiate with the Democrats from a position of strength, because it was a moving target. It was a continuous moving target. And this is fascinating from a guy who's supposed to be a master negotiator, because I don't know, maybe I'm not a master negotiator, but this seemed like a complete and utter mess. A complete and utter mess. So I think what they're trying to do here, right, is they're probably going to come out with a narrow bill, which will probably have some funding for some kind of wall, which is just throwing money down a drain, down a drain. You know the wall that they built? Because there's already a wall on the Mexican border. It covers most of the California border with Mexico. There's a wall there. But you know that the wall has holes, it has gaps, and a lot of places where there isn't a wall, it's in litigation because the land is private and the private owners don't want to give up the land to build a wall. And in other places where it's private, there are holes in the wall so the cattle can move in and out, but of course people can't. It's just the cattle. So the whole concept of a wall is completely and utterly bogus, particularly in a land like America, which believes in property rights. It's just a ridiculous notion. It's ineffectual. And who are you trying to protect ourselves exactly? Now, by the way, the wall in the West Bank is not effective at all. And I've done a whole show on that, and I gave lots of examples on how the wall in the West Bank is not effective. Nobody who understands terrorism in Israel thinks that the wall was what stopped terrorism, or the wall is what is holding terrorists back. Palestinians go in and out of Israel every single day, wall or no wall. Terrorism has declined for many other reasons that have nothing, zero. And indeed, every time I fly over that wall, I've flown in a helicopter in Israel a few times, every time I fly over that wall, I think, there is the sign of defeatism. There is the sign of Israel giving up and declaring its defeat. Walls are defeat. Walls are signs of weakness. A confident power does not build walls. It projects power outwards. It makes it clear what will happen if you invade. But who are we trying to keep out? I understand the Israeli wall is trying to keep out terrorists. It doesn't do a very good job at it, but it's trying to keep out terrorists. Who are we trying to keep out? Is there a mass invasion of Muslims over the southern border? If there was, then yeah, we could talk about it. I would be open to whatever security measures were necessary in order to keep out Hamas or Hezbollah or Al-Qaeda or ISIS terrorists invading the United States of America. But no, as far as I can tell, very few Muslims come across that border. And if they can't come across the Mexican border, they can go to Canada, and they can come across the Canadian border. So if a few here and there cross from Mexico, they could just as easily cross from Canada, indeed easier. And we're not going to build a wall on the Canadian border, I don't think. I mean, maybe some of you want to build a wall on the Canadian border. Maybe that's the next step, is to build a wall on the Canadian border. I would tear down the wall in Israel. I would tear down whatever walls exist here. So who are we afraid of? We're afraid of a bunch of Mexicans who are going to invade this country and destroy it. Now, okay, well, but let's be honest. Let's drop the Muslim thing. Islam is not a threat from the southern border. That's not where they're coming in from. It's not where they're coming in from. And again, I don't believe that building a wall would stop them, even if they were coming in from there. But then I could understand. Right? But, so the whole concept of a wall is, in my view, Donald Trump doesn't care one iota about a wall. It's a campaign promise, and he will fulfill it. He's already lied about who will pay for the wall. You know, that was just bogus. But he has to fulfill the wall. That was one of the primaries. So they will build some miles of wall. It will be ineffectual. It'll be pathetic. But he will be able to say, I built a wall, I made a promise, and I fulfilled that promise. So, I mean, the whole meeting just showed again Trump at he's weak. He's pathetic. He stands for nothing. He's unprincipled. He's a pragmatist. And there's no there. And, you know, if you want to, at some point he says, let's have a bill of love, you know, referring to the DACA thing, which, of course, Ann Coulter is flipping out. Ann Coulter, after this meeting, was like apoplectic. Trump is betraying everything. You know, Trump is rejecting all of his base. He's rejecting all of his promises. So anytime Ann Coulter is apoplectic is good. So maybe the one virtue of Trump is once in a while he makes her apoplectic. So good, right? But this one thing that he said was truly stunning. So I have to actually read you this. Let me just find the quote, because wow, I mean this I think tells you everything you need to know about Trump. And it tells you how swamp-like of an animal he is. I mean, he is the swamp. I want to drain the swamp more than anybody. Trump can't drain the swamp because he is the swamp. He's always been the swamp. He's been a swamp animal from the beginning. This is what happened. So they're talking about, you know, why can't the Democrats and the Republicans get along? Why can't they cut a deal? Look, we agree on some things here. There's enough goodwill. Why can't we get together and cut a deal? And Trump says, and so they're going into this, and he's lamenting the lack of comedy and the lack of cooperation. And then he says this. This is just mind-boggling. He says, quote, and I'm quoting Trump. You can go check the tapes. I hear so much about earmarks. You remember earmarks? This is me now. Earmarks are when a senator would say, look, I don't want to vote for that bill. But if you give me, I don't know, a few $1,000,000 to build this bridge to nowhere or to subsidize this little company in my state or in my little congressional district, then I'll vote for it. And every bill in Congress had massive amounts of all these little things that were stuck in there to get congressmen to vote for the bill. And in 2011, the House of Representatives, who were controlled by Republicans, bravely declared that we will have no more earmarks, which was a huge step forward. It was a good thing. It was a good thing. So take away these little goodies that we bribe congressmen so that they vote for bills. So what is Trump saying? Quote, I hear so much about earmarks and how there was a great friendliness when you had earmarks. Maybe all of you should start thinking about going back to a form of earmarks. In other words, let's have a swamp on steroids. Swamp on steroids. Let's go back to giving each other favors, taking taxpayers' money and distributing to little congressional districts to get people's votes, to buy votes. That's what Trump is suggesting as the solution for the discord in Washington. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how anybody can have a positive attitude towards Trump given this kind of nonsense. All right, we have got 3 callers. We're going to take the 3 callers, and we're going to call it quits because I've already got 50 minutes, and the show's supposed to be only 40. Hi, you're on the Yaron Book Show. Hello? You got to talk. Area code 718. All right, I can't hear you. I'll try you again at the end. Hi, you're on the Yaron Book Show. Area code 262. Hey, how's it going?
I've got a question back to the things you were saying earlier about trickle-down economics.
Sure.
I'm going to read one sentence from Galt's speech, and then I got a question about it.
Okay.
In proportion to the mental energy he spent, the man who creates a new invention receives but a small percentage of his value in terms of material payment, no matter what fortune he makes, no matter what millions he earns.
That's right.
Okay, so I understand how, like someone like me who's not an inventor, like I benefit from all this great stuff everyone's created, way more than I ever could have done on my own, of course. But I don't understand. I can see how maybe sometimes the producer doesn't get payment for everything he produces, but I don't understand why, in principle, he never does. Why he never gets what he values.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful on how you understand that passage. He's not saying there's some massive injustice here. What he's saying is, look, relative to the value that's being added by this human being. So take Bill Gates, right? Take Microsoft. Microsoft has created trillions of dollars of wealth in the world. It has provided jobs to millions of people. It has made thousands millionaires. It has created industries, whole industries, companies. I mean, the value that Microsoft is, that Bill Gates is by creating Microsoft and making it what it was, brought to the world is immeasurable. It's in the trillions of dollars. And Bill Gates made 70 billion of those trillions of dollars. So the point is that as much money, as much wealth, as much as the inventor gets, it's dwarfed by the wealth and the benefit and the value he creates out there in the world. So it's not that you owe him something other than, I think, thanks. But it's not that he should feel sorry for himself because he's not being justly compensated. He is being justly compensated, right? Because it's a trade, and he's getting what the trade, what he's negotiated in the trade, and what the trade is legitimate. But what she's trying to point out is exactly the point I was making about flood down. The vast amounts of wealth that have created in the world out there. Yes, you're getting a lot, but it's nothing as you're provided, and it's nothing as compared to the effort, the real effort you put in, and the value you have created. Does that make sense? Or here's another example.
Yeah.
Here's another example. Think of Newton, right? Think of Isaac Newton, right? Now, I don't know how much money he made. I'm sure he did okay. He wasn't super wealthy, but he did okay for his time. But think about everything that Isaac Newton has made possible, right? I mean, you can't put a number on it. Right? That's what she's trying, and think about the genius and the effort and what he had to go through to do what he did. That's what she's trying to get at. She's trying to get at the disproportionate value added that the real productive geniuses or aesthetic, artistic geniuses or scientific geniuses provide to all of humanity. And she's combating, think about who she's fighting against. She's combating the Marxist theory of labor, which says, no, manual labor produces everything. Bill Gates is just an exploiter. Right? And she's trying to turn the tables on that.
So I think if I'm understanding what the way you're explaining this passage is, it's really a passage about the ideas that these people bring to the world. And so, I'm just thinking of, I'm trying to generalize from your comments. I can see from the two examples you use that clearly that follows. But imagine somebody does something on a much smaller scale, like just creates like a very simple toy car and sells it at Walmart. That person hasn't, brought these novel new ideas to the world, which are changing the way we live. It's just a simple little toy car, which people like and buy. So is it possible that in a situation like that, where the person might get paid roughly equivalent to what he provides to the world, but case of ideas just go on and change everything forever? Is that really what Rand is addressing in that passage, that the value that ideas provide to the world?
Well, some ideas. I mean, good ideas, right ideas, just ideas.
Sure.
Yes. So it's not every idea, and it's ideas. It's the value that ideas create in the world out there. Yes.
Okay. Thanks. That's helpful. Appreciate it.
Sure. All right, we're gonna try to take one more question. I actually have less than 3 minutes, so you're gonna have to ask something really, really fast, or call in tomorrow.
Okay. So there's a new program happening in the Denver area, kind of close to where I live, where they're going to offer a voucher system for people who make under a certain threshold, and they're going to pay 35% of their rent. And I was trying to make a point to somebody that doesn't solve the underlying issue.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Next month, they're starting it.
Okay, so can you send me a link to that?
Where?
Ask Yaron at yaronbrookshow.com. And then I'll just cover that in my show tomorrow.
Okay, cool.
All right? Great. Ask Yaron at yaronbrookshow.com. Any of you who have questions or have suggestions or have news stories, have ideas, don't flood me with like 10 in one day. One at a time, one a day, you guys can send. Thanks for calling. Thanks for the idea for a topic. I'll talk about it tomorrow. I am running out of time, so I'm going to have to call it quits here. Again, apologize about the technical issues. There is a good recording that will go up on YouTube with all of this. So the people who watch this after the fact, not live, will get a perfect recording of it. But we will work on this. If you want the technical side to get better, go to Patreon and make a contribution. That is going to fund any upgrades in equipment. That is going to fund any tech guy that I bring in to make this work better. But I think at this point, what I need, it's simple. A more powerful computer. I'm going to try to figure out how to do that.
60 seconds.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Have a great week. And I will be back here tomorrow, same time, same place. I think, same show. Yeah, tomorrow is good. Same show. Talk to you then. Bye.